You are not advocating on behalf of these victims. You are shielding illegals. Even in your opening statement, you prioritize putting illegals first.
That is not
Rapes
true.
of young girls, beatings of NYPD cops by illegals who are here under Kathy Hochul's failed policies, burning New Yorkers alive. This is Kathy Hochul's New York. It's one of the many reasons why you're hemorrhaging support from hardworking New York families.
These are horrific crimes, and they're heartbreaking.
They're horrific crimes that are committed on your watch. You signed this executive order on your first day in office. You signed it again and again this January.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First. Today, we're diving deep into what might be one of the most revealing congressional hearings I've seen in years. Before we get started, I need you to hit that like button if you believe in putting America and Americans first, and make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we're bringing you the truth that the mainstream media won't touch. Also, if you want to support real patriotic content and help us continue fighting for conservative values, head over to patreon.com/AmericaFirst where you can support us for as low as $5 a month. Every dollar helps us stay independent and keep bringing you the content that matters. Today, we're going to break down this absolutely explosive exchange between Representative Stefanik from New York and Governor Kathy Hochul. What you're about to hear is going to make your blood boil, but it's also going to open your eyes to exactly what's happening in states controlled by radical leftist Democrats. This is a perfect example of why we need leaders who put America first, not politicians who care more about protecting illegal immigrants than they do about protecting American citizens.
Thank you. Governor Hochul, on your first day in office, you signed Executive Order 1. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
And you extended this executive order not once, not twice, but 3 times, most recently January 16th of this year. Is that correct?
If that's what your facts show, I signed countless executive orders.
I would assume you'd know it's
laws.
Executive Order 1. And this is a continuation of your predecessor's sanctuary state policies, correct? Is included in that.
I want to be sure we are defining sanctuary state properly.
I'll define it for you. It is the policy of the state that state officers or employees shall not disclose information to federal immigration authorities for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement. It goes on to say, law enforcement officers may not use resources, equipment, or personnel for the purpose of detecting and apprehending any individual suspected or wanted for violating a civil immigration office. Law enforcement officers have no authority in the state of New York to take any policy action solely because the person is an undocumented alien. That's a quote in your executive orders that you extended. Now, do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to get back to the first part
No,
of
I'm
your
asking a question. Do you know who
Well,
Sakir Akan is?
I want to make sure you understand that this simply says that we will cooperate with ICE.
No,
in
it does
all-
not say that. I read what it
We will
says, and let me talk to you about the results. Do you know who Sakir Akan is? You should, as the governor of New York State. Do you know?
Refresh my recollection.
He was an illegal migrant in New York. And do you know what crime he committed in addition to being here illegally?
No, I do not.
You do not. This was widely reported. He found a 15-year-old girl, threatened her with a metal pole, told her to get into the back seat of his car, he took her clothes off, and he violently raped her in Albany, New York. Do you know who Sebastian Zapita Khalil is?
I'm sure you'll tell me there's many cases, whether they're
These are
here-
high-profile cases.
Yes.
New Yorkers know about them, and you don't. So let's talk about Sebastian Zapita Khalil. Do you know who that is?
I don't have the specific details at my disposal, no.
Well, this is an illegal migrant in New York because of your sanctuary state policies. Do you know what crime he committed?
I'm not familiar at this moment.
I bet you're going to be familiar when I remind you. He found a sleeping woman on the subway, lit her on fire, and burned her alive. This is in Kathy Hochul's New York. And as I'm sure you are aware, and I'll remind you, that ICE issued an order to detain this violent criminal, but that was rejected by New York officials due to sanctuary state laws. Now, do you know who Raymond Rojas Basilio is?
I just want to say this. These crimes are horrific.
Because of
condemn
your,
them,
because of
and I
your
would
sanctuary
say
state policies.
In all of these cases, we would work with ICE to remove
You did
them.
not in this case. They are
If they need
walking
our
on the
assistance.
streets because of your policies and your executive order that you signed 3 times. Now, Raymond Rojas Basilio, do you know who that is?
I'm telling you this. I will
You don't know
explain to
who
you
it
the
is.
policies of New York. We cooperate with, I know you're just
You do
trying to.
you do not. Specifically, ICE was told not to detain this individual, and he burned a woman alive on the New York subways in Kathy Hochul's New York. So I will keep on going. What about Raymond Rojas Basilio? Do you know who that is?
I'm going to tell you our overall policy, which will address all this.
I'll tell
We
you
do
who
not-
that is. He is an illegal who molested an 11-year-old in our state because, again, of your sanctuary state policies. This illegal was shielded from federal immigration enforcement and able to commit this heinous crime. And what about Wilson Castillo Diaz? Do you know who that
I am
is?
telling you this. We do cooperate fully with ICE in criminal prosecution. Our sanctuary
You're not advocating for
regulations
these victims.
only deal with
This is a
civil
5-year-old who
enforcement.
was raped
Civil
on Long
enforcement.
Island in Nassau County. You are not advocating on behalf of these victims. You are shielding illegals. Even in your opening statement,
That is
you
not true.
prioritize putting illegals first.
That is not
Rapes
true.
of young girls, beatings of NYPD cops by illegals who are here under Kathy Hochul's failed policies, burning New Yorkers alive. This is Kathy Hochul's New York. It's one of the many reasons why you're hemorrhaging support from hardworking New York
These are
families.
horrific crimes, and they're
They're
heartbreaking.
horrific crimes that are committed on your watch. You signed this executive order on your first day in office. You signed it again and again this January. We deserve a governor who stands up for law-abiding New Yorkers, doesn't put illegals first, but actually puts New Yorkers first. I appreciate
Rather than
the
going
chairman's
after the viral moment, I suggest you
no,
look
no,
at the
no.
facts.
I'm standing up for New Yorkers.
No.
Rather than addressing the illegals in New York, you are prioritizing your far-left sanctuary state policies, which you put in place with executive orders. Instead of advocating for
cooperate
victims,
in all
a
those
5-year-old
cases.
who
We
was raped,
cooperate with ICE.
you did not. They were released
We
because
cooperate
of
with
sanctuary
ICE.
state
We
policies in New
cooperate
York
with
State.
law
No
enforcement.
amount of words is going to clean up your failed record and these horrific crimes committed in sanctuary state that you created. And with that, I
Your
yield back.
representation, the facts,
Gentlelady
absolutely false.
yields back.
Absolutely
Chair
false.
recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C.
Let me start by setting the stage here. Representative Stefanik is questioning Governor Hochul about Executive Order Number 1, which she signed on her very first day in office. Think about that for a moment. On day 1, her first priority wasn't fixing the economy, wasn't addressing crime, wasn't helping struggling New York families. Her first priority was to extend and reinforce sanctuary state policies that protect people who shouldn't even be in our country in the first place. Now, I want to read you exactly what this executive order says because the language here is absolutely crucial. It states that state officers or employees shall not disclose information to federal immigration authorities for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement. Let me repeat that. They are actively preventing cooperation with federal immigration authorities. It goes on to say that law enforcement officers may not use resources, equipment, or personnel for the purpose of detecting and apprehending any individual suspected or wanted for violating civil immigration law. This isn't just about being compassionate or humane. This is about actively obstructing federal law enforcement. This is about creating a system where people who have broken our immigration laws are given special protection by state government. And here's the kicker. The order specifically states that law enforcement officers have no authority in the state of New York to take any policy action solely because a person is an undocumented alien. They are literally tying the hands of law enforcement when it comes to dealing with people who are in our country illegally. But here's where this gets really infuriating. When Representative Stefanik starts asking Governor Hochul about specific cases, specific victims of crimes committed by illegal immigrants who are protected by these sanctuary policies, she doesn't know who these people are. She doesn't know their names. She doesn't know their stories. She doesn't know what happened to the American citizens who were victimized because of her policies. Let me tell you about Sakira Khan. This is a name that every American should know, and certainly every governor should know if these crimes are happening in their state. Sakira Khan was an illegal immigrant in New York who found a 15-year-old girl, threatened her with a metal pole, forced her into the back seat of his car, and violently raped her. A 15-year-old American girl was brutally assaulted by someone who shouldn't have been in our country in the first place, and the governor of New York doesn't even know his name. But it gets worse. Sebastian Zapata Khalil, another illegal immigrant protected by New York's sanctuary policies, found a sleeping woman on the subway and lit her on fire, burning her alive. Let that sink in for a moment. A woman was burned alive on a New York subway by someone who should have been deported long ago. ICE had issued a detainer order for this violent criminal, but New York officials rejected it because of sanctuary state laws. An American woman died a horrific death because Governor Hochul's policies protected her killer. Then there's Raymond Rojas Basilio, an illegal immigrant who molested an 11-year-old child. An 11-year-old American child was sexually abused by someone who was shielded from federal immigration enforcement by New York's sanctuary policies. And Wilson Castillo-Diaz, who raped a 5-year-old child on Long Island. A 5-year-old baby was sexually assaulted by someone who was protected by Kathy Hochul's executive orders. These aren't just statistics. These aren't just talking points. These are real American children and women who were brutalized, who were victimized, who were traumatized or killed because a radical leftist governor decided that protecting illegal immigrants was more important than protecting American citizens. And what's Governor Hochul's response when confronted with these horrific crimes? She tries to deflect. She tries to change the subject. She claims that New York cooperates with ICE, but the evidence clearly shows otherwise. When ICE issued detainer orders for these violent criminals, New York refused to honor them. When federal immigration authorities tried to do their job, New York actively obstructed them. This is the face of the radical left's immigration policies. This is what happens when you have leaders who care more about virtue signaling and political correctness than they do about protecting the people they were elected to serve. Governor Hochul signed this executive order not once, not twice, but 3 times. She had multiple opportunities to reconsider, to look at the consequences of these policies, but instead she doubled down, tripled down, and quadrupled down on protecting people who are in our country illegally, even when they commit violent crimes against American citizens. The representative makes a crucial point when he says that Governor Hochul is not advocating for the victims. She's not standing up for the 15-year-old girl who was raped. She's not fighting for justice for the woman who was burned alive. She's not demanding accountability for the children who were sexually abused. Instead, she's defending the policies that made these crimes possible. This is exactly why we need leaders who understand that the first responsibility of government is to protect its own citizens. We need leaders who understand that immigration law exists for a reason, and that reason is to protect American communities from exactly these kinds of situations. We need leaders who will work with federal authorities, not against them, when it comes to removing dangerous criminals from our streets. The fact that Governor Hochul doesn't know these names, doesn't know these cases, doesn't know these stories, tells you everything you need to know about her priorities. She knows every detail about protecting illegal immigrants, but she doesn't know the names of the American victims of her policies. She can quote chapter and verse from her executive orders, but she can't tell you about the children who were sexually abused because of those same orders. This is why the America First movement is so crucial. This is why we need to elect leaders at every level of government who understand that American citizens come first. Not illegal immigrants, not foreign nationals, not people who have broken our laws to get here. American citizens come first, and anyone who doesn't understand that basic principle has no business holding elected office. The representative also makes another important point about the political consequences of these policies. He mentions that Governor Hochul is hemorrhaging support from hardworking New Yorkers, and that's exactly what should happen. When politicians prioritize illegal immigrants over American citizens, when they create policies that make American communities less safe, they should lose the support of the people they're supposed to represent. This hearing also exposes the hypocrisy of the radical left's approach to immigration. They claim to be compassionate, they claim to be humane, but where is their compassion for the American victims of their policies? Where is their humanity when it comes to the children who were sexually abused, the women who were raped and murdered? Their compassion is selective, their humanity is conditional, and their priorities are completely backwards. What makes this even more infuriating is that these crimes were completely preventable. If New York had simply cooperated with federal immigration authorities, if they had honored IC detainer requests, if they had allowed law enforcement to do their jobs, these American victims would still be alive, would still be safe, would still be whole. But because Governor Hochul and politicians like her have decided that protecting illegal immigrants is more important than protecting American citizens, innocent people have suffered and died. This is also a perfect example of why we need to support strong federal immigration enforcement. ICE was trying to do their job. They identified dangerous criminals who were in our country illegally. They issued detainer orders. They followed proper procedures. But radical leftist politicians at the state and local level actively obstructed them, actively prevented them from removing these dangerous individuals from our communities. The exchange also reveals the arrogance of these radical leftist politicians. When confronted with the consequences of her policies, Governor Hochul doesn't show remorse, doesn't show concern for the victims, doesn't promise to do better. Instead, she gets defensive, she deflects, she tries to change the subject. She's more concerned about her political image than she is about the American citizens who have suffered because of her decisions. This is exactly the kind of leadership that the America First movement stands against. We believe in leaders who put American citizens first, who prioritize public safety over political correctness, who understand that their first responsibility is to protect the people they serve. We don't need leaders who care more about their standing with radical leftist activists than they do about the safety of American families. The representative's questioning is also a masterclass in how to hold these radical politicians accountable. He doesn't let her deflect. He doesn't let her change the subject. He forces her to confront the reality of her policies, the real-world consequences of her decisions. He makes her face the fact that her executive orders have made American communities less safe, have put American families at risk, have resulted in the victimization of American children. This is the kind of accountability that we need to see more of. We need representatives who will stand up to radical leftist governors and mayors, who will force them to explain their policies, who will make them face the consequences of their decisions. We need leaders who will fight for American victims, who will demand justice for American families, who will prioritize American citizens over illegal immigrants. The hearing also demonstrates why sanctuary policies are such a threat to public safety. These policies don't just protect law-abiding illegal immigrants who are trying to build better lives. They also protect violent criminals, sexual predators, and murderers. When you create a blanket policy that prevents cooperation with federal immigration authorities, you're not just protecting the sympathetic cases. You're also protecting the dangerous ones. This is why we need comprehensive immigration reform that puts American citizens first. We need policies that allow law enforcement to do their jobs, that enable cooperation between federal, state, and local authorities, that prioritize public safety over political correctness. We need leaders who understand that immigration law exists to protect American communities, not to be ignored or circumvented by radical politicians. The exchange also highlights the media's role in covering up these stories. The representative mentions that these cases were widely reported, but clearly not widely enough if the governor of the state doesn't know about them. This is because the mainstream media doesn't want to report on crimes committed by illegal immigrants because it doesn't fit their narrative. They want to portray all illegal immigrants as sympathetic figures, as people who are just trying to build better lives, and they don't want to acknowledge that some of them are dangerous criminals who pose a threat to American communities. This is why independent media, why channels like America First, are so important. We're willing to tell the stories that the mainstream media won't tell. We're willing to give voice to the American victims who are ignored by the radical leftist politicians and their media allies. We're willing to hold these politicians accountable for their policies and their consequences. As we wrap up this analysis, I want you to remember the names I mentioned today. Sakirakan, Sebastian Zapata Khalil, Raymond Rojas Basilio, Wilson Castillo Diaz. These are the names of illegal immigrants who committed horrific crimes against American citizens because radical leftist politicians prioritized protecting them over protecting American families. But more importantly, remember their victims. Remember the 15-year-old girl who was raped, the woman who was burned alive, the 11-year-old and 5-year-old children who were sexually abused. These are the real victims of sanctuary state policies. This hearing is a wake-up call for every American who cares about public safety, who believes in the rule of law, who thinks that American citizens should come first. We cannot allow radical leftist politicians to continue implementing policies that make our communities less safe, that put our families at risk, that prioritize illegal immigrants over American citizens. We need to vote these politicians out of office. We need to elect leaders who will put America first, who will enforce our immigration laws, who will cooperate with federal authorities to remove dangerous criminals from our streets. We need to support candidates who understand that their first responsibility is to protect American citizens, not to virtue signal about their compassion for people who are in our country illegally. Patriots, this is why your support matters. This is why we need channels like America First to continue bringing you the truth that the mainstream media won't report. If you believe in putting American citizens first, if you believe in the rule of law, if you believe that our elected officials should prioritize protecting American families over protecting illegal immigrants, then I need you to support this channel. Head over to patreon.com/AmericaFirst and support us for as low as $5 a month. Every dollar helps us continue fighting for conservative values and American principles. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this content with your friends and family. The only way we're going to change the direction of this country is if we stand together, if we hold these radical politicians accountable, and if we demand leaders who will put America first. Until next time, keep fighting for America, keep fighting for our values, and keep putting American citizens first.